Here we go. From the Silver Creek Studios, I'm Jared, and this is the BFIBs Almanac. We've had kind of a crazy week so far with the Cardinals, so there's a lot to talk about. Let's dig right in. Kind of the most surprising thing and most exciting thing is they've taken the first 3 games from the Dodgers. It's a 4-game series that finishes up Thursday, and I really don't think too many people expected us to take the series from them. Most people felt like they'd be lucky to take 2 out of 4, and honestly, 1 out of 4 would have been okay. The Dodgers came in red hot, putting up all kinds of runs. They were 8-2. They averaged 8.4 runs a game going into this 4-game series with the Cardinals, and averaged 2.4 home runs a game. And now in this series, they have only put up 1.6 runs a game, and they had no home runs in the first 2 and only 2 home runs tonight. So they've definitely been held in check by Cardinals pitching, which is great. They were averaging 307 batting average, 403 on base, 587 slugging going into the series. And through the first 2 games, the third game wasn't quite up on Baseball Reference yet, but 194, 342 on base, and 258 slugging. So just a crazy turnaround offensively for the Dodgers because of the Cardinals pitching. So that's kind of been the key element so far, the pitching, starting and relieving. Michaelis was a little shaky in the first game, but the rest of the starters have been really good, and the bullpen has been great. We did have Tyler Webb gave up a home run tonight, along with Flaherty, but other than that, they looked really solid. Webb even got an out after that home run, so everybody's doing their job. Brebbia and Gant especially have been very good. Dominic Leone has closed out a game. Tonight he closed it out. He didn't get the save because of the run differential, but looked very good. Miller has come in and faced some lefties and got them out. He hasn't been used beyond getting those lefties, which I think is a good thing for now. So all in all, very good from the starting pitching and the rotation. So again, the Dodgers were crazy hot before coming into town, so this is very surprising. Offensively, Ozuna has started to come around. He sort of started to come alive against San Diego, and has 2 out of the 3 games we played so far against LA have been really good. I think Tuesday night, I think he had an 0-for game. But Monday and Wednesday, he's looked really good. He's hitting line drive home runs, hitting the ball hard. He did have this bizarre wall climbing incident, which I'm sure many of you have seen or heard about already. But he thought he timed a well-hit ball that he thought was going to be a home run, and he could rob it. So he climbed the fence, and turns out the ball didn't get really all that close to the fence, and he ended up trying to hop down but couldn't and fell flat on his face, and the ball dropped on the warning track right next to him. Embarrassing. Bader and Fowler were making fun of him. It was pretty funny to see them trying to contain themselves, and then Fowler started miming the dive off the wall. So I don't know. It was funny because it didn't really affect the game and the outcome, but if it had, kind of like last year when he did the same thing and misplayed a ball, climbed up on the wall, and the ball ended up hitting the base of the wall, and a couple runs scored in that game, and I think we ended up losing that game. That was against Milwaukee, but regardless, it affected that inning for sure, and likely the outcome of that game. Now, this dates back to a play he made when he was in Miami, where he did basically the same thing, scaled the wall, climbed up, reached up high, and robbed a home run, and it was great, tremendous play. Everybody loved it. So he's trying to basically do the same thing. When he sees this opportunity, he's going wall climbing. But it's frustrating because it's really just pretty stupid. He's not judging the ball at all. He's deciding way too early what he's going to do. He's not playing the ball, playing the route. It's pretty pathetic. Actually, it's not good outfield. It's hard to believe this guy ever won a Gold Glove. We've seen so many poor routes and poor throws, and he's made some good catches too, but it's just strange to me to see this guy holding up a Gold Glove award. But anyway, I don't want to get too critical of him. He has definitely been hitting better lately, and hopefully he keeps that going. Hopefully he can stretch that shoulder out and get those throws back to where they used to be. Along the same offensive lines, Molina has finally started to come around. He had a home run tonight on Wednesday, and he's getting plenty of RBIs. He actually started to get a little better against San Diego too, along with Ozuna. So Molina was very, very cold to start, the first 7 or 8 games or so of the season. I think he had 1 hit through those games, and then over the last 3 or 4, he's been much, much better. So we knew that was going to happen. Eventually he would come around, but it's nice to see him finally get going and contributing. So, and DeYoung, of course, has been red hot through all these games. I forget what his streak is now. He's either 11 or 12 game hitting streak. I think it's 11. But he's hitting home runs. He's hitting doubles. He had a triple tonight. Lots of RBIs. He's hitting in that 3-hole spot, which, a lot of people criticized Schilt for going with Goldschmidt in the 2-hole instead of batting Goldschmidt third. They've got DeYoung third. But so far, at least as for DeYoung's performance, it's working out. Now, Goldschmidt, as much as he's got the 6 home runs, his batting average is still really low. He's kind of hovering around 200. He was under 200. Several other guys are too, and it's still early to be looking at averages. But there were a lot of people kind of saying, hey, maybe we need to get this guy batting third, get some guys on base in front of him, put a little more pressure on the pitcher. But I think having DeYoung behind him being so productive is only going to help Goldschmidt. So I'm sure they're going to stick with that for a while, and I'm sure Goldschmidt will come around with his batting average. He started slow last year too, and then was in the MVP race, so I think he's going to be fine. But offensively, everybody's starting to look a little bit better. We'd still like to see more from Fowler. Carp's batting average is still kind of low. We'd like to see more from him. Wong and Bader pretty much are doing their part. We'd like to see everybody kind of take it up a notch a little, but overall the lineup is looking good. Guys are coming off the bench and contributing, so it's definitely trending upwards offensively, which is a good thing. So we got one more game against the Dodgers. That is tomorrow. I'm recording this right after the Wednesday night game 3. So Thursday is a 12:15 start. Wacha versus Buehler. So Buehler is a very highly regarded pitcher, but this year he's had 2 very opposite starts. He had one where he only pitched 3 innings, gave up 5 earned runs, no strikeouts, and then his second start was much better, 5 innings, 1 earned run, 4 strikeouts. So I'm sure he's going to be leaning more towards that good start than the terrible one, but we'll see. The Cardinals have not done great against him in the past, but they're looking much better this week. They've got lots of confidence, so we will see. Wacha has been one of our best starting pitchers this year, so I would expect him to continue that good quality pitching. So Wacha versus Buehler on Thursday is going to be a good matchup. All right. One big piece of news this week was today they announced Matt Carpenter signed a 2-year extension with a 3rd year that can have a vesting option. So we'll get into the numbers here. So the way that works out is the 2-year deal is for 2020 and 2021, and the vesting option is obviously for 2022. Now, where it gets a little strange is this was the last year of his deal, but he already had a team option for 2020. So next season had an $18.5 million team option. So basically what they've done is pick up that team option already, tack on another year, 2021, and then they've got this vesting option for the 3rd year. And the way that vests is with plate appearances. So he has to reach 1,100 total plate appearances between 2020 and 2021. and at least 550 of those have to come in 2021. So more than half of those 1,100 have to come in the second year of the deal. So to put that into perspective, so again, he has to reach 550, which would be half of the 1,100. He has to reach that in the second year. He has not had less than 566 plate appearances since his rookie season. And that one year that he had 566 was an injury-shortened season where he only played 129 games. So, assuming he stays relatively healthy, he can even afford to miss, about a fifth of the season or so and still get to those plate appearances. He's typically in the, well into the 600s and the 700 plate appearances. So that goal shouldn't be too tough to reach. Again, that part of the contract is just based on him staying healthy is basically what that's saying. But again, he could miss, a decent chunk of the season and still get those plate appearances. So that being said, I would expect that third year to vest and get picked up. Does this make sense? Well, let's see. I don't know if I said the dollars on those. So each of those years, I believe, is $18.5 million. So you already had this team option for $18.5. So basically, they said $18.5 in 2020 and 2021, and then I think it's another $18.5 in 2022 if that vests. He's 33 years old this year. He's going to turn 34 in November after the season, but this is his age 33 season. So that means these next 3 seasons will be age 34, 35, and 36. We've talked a lot about player ages on previous episodes, discussing guys like Goldschmidt and Harper and, whoever, and looking at when do these guys start to decline significantly. And it does look like it's around that 35, 36 age that they start to really drop off. We saw several examples where guys kind of kept their numbers up through age 35, and then at 36 was the big drop off. Very few guys continue to produce beyond 36. Some did, but really right at that 36 is when you saw this decline. So this puts him through that age season, and that there's that gamble of when will he start to decline. But I think when you look at what type of player he is and what his stats have been changing towards over the last few seasons, for instance, last year, his on-base percentage was the second lowest of his career. Now, it was .374, which is still really good, but again, it was the second lowest of his career. The last time it was that low was like his second or third season. Now, on the flip side of that, his slugging percentage was the highest of his career at .523. Now, we all know he went on a home run tear last year. He was in the MVP race. By all accounts, he had a pretty good season. But his batting average has been trending down. His on-base percentage is trending down. His slugging is trending up. But you have to kind of question or wonder, do you really want to invest in a 33-year-old player who is turning into a power hitter? Generally, guys who are power hitters drop off quicker. So if he's kind of becoming this power hitter and his on-base numbers and average numbers are trending downward, is there any reason to think that that's going to get better or that he's going to maintain those power numbers? I would have doubts about that. I would have concerns. This is on a polar opposite end, but we've seen recently the Chris Davis talk, the Orioles first baseman who and DH sometimes, who is on an 0 for 47 streak dating back to last season. And a lot of people are attributing that to the type of player that he is. He is a power hitter, a home run hitter who strikes out a lot. Now, Carp doesn't necessarily strike out a lot, though his strikeouts are going up. But the issue being these power hitters who already strike out a lot, as they age, their strikeouts are going to get even worse and their power numbers are going to go down, and they're just going to become this completely ineffective player, which is what's happening with Chris Davis. And they still owe him $100 million. So that being said, the money that we're talking about paying to Carpenter is only for sure $37 million over the next 2 seasons, and then another 18.5 on top of that is, what are we saying, 55.5. And then if they don't do that third year, it's a $2 million buyout. So, it's not as much money as some of these other guys, obviously. That $18.5 million amount is really close to the 1-year qualifying offer that they would give to a lot of these guys anyway. So we're not talking 20, 25, 30, 40 million, nothing like that. So it's not that bad of a contract. I just kind of wonder, again, why would you do this? You already had a team option for next year. So why not wait out this season and see how it goes? Even halfway through All-Star break, you've got next year that you can make a decision on at the end of this season. Do we want to keep him around? And then you could decide next year, how does he look? Are his numbers trending down? And offer him a 1 or 2 year extension at that point. So I'm not really sure why they felt the need to do this now in April, early April. But, I guess you do want to reward your players with security. He's definitely, a beloved Cardinal. He's been here his whole career. He seems to get along really well with the new guy, Paul Goldschmidt. They've got a very similar approach and work ethic and attitude. I think for the most part, I assume it looks like he gets along with everybody. So he's a well-liked player among the team. He's well-liked among the fans. Most fans. I was on that hashtag trade Carp wagon last year. I was ready to move on. I was kind of ready to move on from him the year before. I don't like how streaky he is. When he's really good, he's really good. And when he's bad, he's pretty awful. He seems to only be able to contribute in that leadoff spot, which is fine. He can be a leadoff hitter. But if his on-base percentage starts dropping and he's no longer a leadoff type and he can't fit in other spots in the lineup, then that's a concern. His defense, I think, is shaky, especially at third. I don't think he's a particularly good third baseman. The numbers indicate that maybe he is, but when he doesn't pass the eye test, right? So his throwing to first, especially, is just terrible. I don't think he's thrown one away yet this year. It's going to happen just based on his mechanics and his types of throws. He doesn't have the arm strength. He's never going to be one of these guys that can go pick it deep in the hole and fire over to first and get a guy on a close bang play, like an Arenado or something. He just doesn't have that arm. So he's going to make those kind of routine plays, charging in and whatever. But, do you want a guy who just makes the routine plays and can't get those incredible plays? Who's 33 and trending downward? I don't know. To me, I don't know why they needed to do this right away. It does set a good example for the rest of the team. Work hard, do your job, fit into your role, and you'll be rewarded. So it's a good impression for the team to leave on the other players. But again, this is a business, and you had time, and you have reason to think that this might not be a good idea. So why jump into it? But it's not a huge commitment. It's only potentially 3 more seasons at a reasonable rate, relatively reasonable rate. So, all in all, not a horrible idea. I'm not shaking my head going, why? But I'm kind of scratching my head, whispering, why did they do this? The other kind of interesting thing about this is that we have a lot of third baseman prospects in the system, highly touted third baseman. Gorman, Montero, Nunez, Sosa, Mendoza, all those guys are in the top group of prospects. I think most people are excited, or I think people are most excited about Nolan Gorman, the 19-year-old, or I don't even think he is 19 yet. He's already crushing home runs. He's moving his way up the system. He just looks like he's going to be a contributor sooner than later. And again, you already had Carp. If you didn't think those guys were ready yet, you've got Carp under contract next year if you want. That gives you this season and all of next season for one of these guys to work their way up. And then you can decide, is Carp still what we think he is? Is he still contributing at a $18 million pace? Or could we go with one of these young guys and get them going? So apparently not. They're going to go 3 more years of Carp, which does kind of put a block on these prospects. Now, it doesn't mean that they won't develop. It doesn't mean we couldn't trade them for some, valuable piece. It doesn't mean one of them couldn't move to second base or something at some point. Who knows? But I just thought it was interesting that they've kind of stockpiled all these third basemen that are highly touted offensive prospects, and they basically just committed to not bringing them up for 3 more years. So kind of interesting. So we'll see how that plays out. So far, Carp's off to a slow start this year. His numbers are way down. Again, it's pretty early to start talking about averages and percentages, but the numbers are down this year so far. So he's got some work cut out for him to get those numbers up to what we expect. But anyway, we will see. I was going to commit this episode, and I'm too far in now, so I'm not going to go into it yet. But I was going to talk about, and I will in a future episode, just kind of evaluating Mike Shildt at this point. And not really looking at too much of last year, just this year, this first season as his full season as a manager. And what do we think? Overall, I'm very impressed. I like Shildt a lot. I don't have many complaints. But that being said, I have noticed a couple interesting things on like how he handles the pitching staff and the bullpen in particular. How long he seems to stick with some of these guys. And a little bit of how he's when he chooses to pinch hit a guy or just start another guy for a game like a Tyler O'Neill or a Jose Martinez. I think we haven't quite seen as much of that as we thought. Like O'Neill and Martinez aren't getting the at-bats that we maybe thought they would, or they're not getting the starts that we thought they would. Fowler's basically playing more than we expected, and Ozuna basically has played every day but the one that he had the little, very short-term one-day injury. So, you could say, well, Ozuna finally got going, and he only got going because he got to play more. And that's good managing, right? You got that guy going. Fowler hasn't really gotten going yet. He still has been hitting the ball hard. He's had some bloop hits lately, so he's contributing, but his average is still down. His on-base percentage dropped off from where it was at the beginning of the year when he had the few walks. So hopefully he can get going, and maybe that's the strategy there, but I've just been kind of curious as to some of these decisions, but particularly with the pitching. Early on, I think he was giving Miller the chance to face more guys, kind of commit an entire inning to him. And when he got into trouble, he was allowing him to pitch out of it, or at least try to pitch out of it. And it wasn't really working. He wasn't pitching out of it. He was getting burned, giving up runs. And, we were having to go to the pen again. So it looked like this bad decision of, what are you doing? Why are you keeping him in? Same thing with Reyes. He was getting into trouble and then trying to pitch out of it, but not able to. And struggling. And we saw that, more than once. And so it was like, didn't we learn from our mistakes before leaving these guys in too long? But it does seem like Shildt has already kind of shifted. The guys who are effective are getting to pitch multiple innings, and the guys who are sort of building back up that effectiveness, like Miller, is facing one guy, having some success, and then coming out, kind of get them out while they're good, let them build upon that, and then, and we'll stretch him out later. So, we have seen some subtle changes in the way he's handling some of these players. But I will dive a little deeper into that at some point. I also wanted to talk about, and I won't get too far into it tonight, this will be on another upcoming episode, why people don't like Marcell Ozuna. I think there's a decent chunk of fans out there who aren't real happy with or aren't big fans of Ozuna. Now, lately, he's been hitting some home runs. He entertained everyone with his wall climbing antics. But there's a lot of people who have issues with Ozuna, and some people are really confused by that. What's the deal? This guy's a power hitter. He's a former Gold Glover. He seems to play with a smile on his face. He's got a pep in his step, all that. So some people are really confused. I happen to be one of those fans that is not a big fan of Ozuna, and I have several reasons why. And I will get into that on a future episode. That was going to be tonight's episode, but we had so much going on with the way the Cardinals have been playing against the Dodgers and Carp's contract that I wanted to get into that stuff first. So maybe Sunday when I record my next episode, kind of depending on how the weekend goes with the games and how much there is to dive into. I doubt we'll have any more contract talk. So maybe the next episode we'll get into a little bit about Schilt's approach and try to look at some numbers there. And we'll get into some of these reasons why fans maybe aren't a big fan of Marcell Ozuna. So that's all I got for this time. I want to thank everybody for listening. Feel free to contact the show at BFIBs Almanac on Twitter and Instagram, bfibsalmanac@gmail.com, and you can find the audio on YouTube, BFIBs Almanac Podcast. So thanks again for listening. Until next time, I'm Jared, and this is the BFIBs Almanac.